maybe 1 minute actually, just for all the attendees to roll in, and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And you are all automatically muted. And I believe you'd be able to unmute yourself if you have a question. We're going to try to reserve questions till the end. So if you don't mind being patient with that, you can type in questions throughout the webinar in the questions box, which you should see on your your right-hand side. And just type in your questions there, and then they'll be in a queue, and then we can begin addressing them towards the end, unless they're really important to the point being made, and then we'll try to clarify if needed. Well, thank you for joining us. This webinar is hosted by the Farmers Market Coalition and in partnership with Market Umbrella, who has partnered with the Farmers Market Coalition on this research project of Farmers Market Promotion Program grantees that we're going to provide some highlights of today. So this is a webinar overview. I'm going to go over some of the main findings of our report, and then we're going to get some perspective from Glenn Hill and Elizabeth Forst with some case studies that we also have available on the website where this research is housed, and that is fmpp.farmersmarketcoalition.org. And the final report, a green paper with an overview and some recommendations, as well as Glenn's and Elizabeth's case studies, as well as 2 others, are all available on that website. So I urge you to check that out, whether you're able to make it through this webinar in person with us or not. So I'm going to start by going over what we know about the Farmers Market Promotion Program, the publicly available information, and I won't read this verbatim, but FMPP has been around for a while. The first grants were awarded in 2006 after being authorized in the 2002 Farm Bill. What changed in the 2008 Farm Bill was an allocation of additional funding, as well as a mandate that 10% of all grant funding would go to help implement EBT SNAP capacity in farmers markets. So beginning in 2008, that changed the nature of many of the projects because there was a new emphasis. The mission, of course, is to help and improve and expand domestic farmers markets, but not only farmers markets, roadside stands, CSAs, agritourism activities, and other kinds of direct consumer market opportunities were all covered within the FMPP's jurisdiction. There's a long list of eligible applicants. I won't read those. Many of you are probably familiar with that. Many of you have probably applied to FMPP, and some of you may have been awarded. And right now I'll take the opportunity to thank any of you that completed our survey last fall. And we really appreciate your input, and it was really valuable to help us understand the program. So we know that out of 2,697 proposals that had been submitted over the last 7 years, 2006 to 2012, that $32.3 million has funded projects over 50 states, 575 projects. The average award amount is $56,193. There have been 109 new EBT projects and 53 existing EBT projects that the program has funded.
Stacy, could you make your presentation full size?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There we go. Is that better?
Perfect. That's perfect. Thanks.
So we also know that the program is highly competitive. Over the course of the program, out of those 2,697 proposals, as I said, 575 have been awarded. That's about 21%. And anecdotally, we know that more organizations want to apply and even go so far as to start the process of creating proposals, but find they might not have the staffing capacity to get the proposal to the finish line. So there are a number of other organizations that would be eligible entities and would take advantage of FMPP, but don't quite have the ability to get the proposal submitted. This is just a little snapshot of the cover of our report, which, as I mentioned, is on the website at fmpp.farmersmarketcoalition.org. And the purpose of the research really was to understand the characteristics and outcomes of Farmers Market Promotion Program grants funded between 2006 and 2011, and then articulate the program's impact on the development and sustainability of farmers markets throughout the U.S. And I do want to note, just as a plug for looking at the report, we do have in the appendix a table that includes a state-by-state breakdown of the total FMPP awards, as well as the new EBT awards and the existing EBT awards that have been awarded over time between 2006 and 2012. So you can see how many FMPP projects have been funded in your state and what that looks like in terms of the total dollars that have been devoted to projects. So beginning in the fall, we decided we really needed to understand more. We realized that FMPP had awarded all of these projects, and we knew anecdotally that there had been a lot of really impressive projects that have taken place. We've seen newspaper articles coming from local newspapers and some really exciting innovations that had emerged through the Farmers Market Promotion Program. But we really didn't have a handle, and I say we, in the Farmers Market Coalition, USDA, and the farmers market community at large, didn't really have a handle on exactly what that means, what that looks like. How do we better understand the diversity of projects that are out there, and what have they really resulted in over time? And of course, that's easier said than done, as you might imagine. What we did was survey 400 organizations that represented grantees from that time period, the 6-year time period. And we got about 50% response rate from all of those organizations, which is pretty good, and we're really pleased with that. And again, thank you for all of you that participated in that survey. And you can see that the grantee population at large is really pretty similar to the respondent population in the overall grant award average. This is how it breaks out over time. Now I'll start going over some of the impacts that we noted and things that we assessed throughout the survey. And again, I'm giving very broad highlights here so that we can fit within the context of a 1-hour webinar. So regarding economic impacts, grantees 27%. And what that looks like on average, we had sales were, we asked respondents to say what the sales levels were at the time they submitted their FMPP proposal versus the time that they were taking that particular survey. And so there was an average pre-FMPP vendor sales of $254,000 that then increased to $324,000 at the time of the survey. And overall, that's a more than $9 million increase among the 200 respondents. One of the things I thought was particularly interesting was that we found that 88% of grantees reported an increase in the diversity of local farm products. And that, of course, has implications regarding the availability, variety of fresh fruits and vegetables. It's great to increase vegetable intake, but if you're only adding corn, beans, and tomatoes and have three crops, then that may limit the market's competitiveness in a retail environment in a community. as well as not be as attractive an option, nutritionally speaking. And it helps diversify producers' production risk as well. I should also note that 60% of grantees said that their project targeted rural areas, compared with 55%, slightly fewer, that said they primarily targeted urban areas. And they were allowed to note more than one area, but I found it particularly interesting that 60% targeted rural areas. So you can see this is how we generally calculated return on investment. And I should note that one of the limitations of the research is that some, we had grantees that had responded that only got their grant in 2011, so they had only 1 year since the beginning of their award, the start date of their award, in which to track any sort of change or outcome. So compared with a 2006 grantee who may have had an additional 5 years of change to record, we had this, we're aggregating this degree of change here. It's still 3.6 times greater than the total amount of grant funding received by those organizations. Additionally, we found that at least 4 producers involved in each organization's grant activities were also selling products to other retail outlets that they weren't at the time that they initially got the FMPP proposal. So diversifying marketing outlets seemed to be an achievement of FMPP in helping producers get to that level so that they could diversify beyond whichever outlet that they were starting in, predominantly farmers markets, but they would also be selling at other retail outlets or restaurants. In one sense, 66% of grantees specifically observed farmer producers mentoring other producers since receiving their award, and that really illustrates the degree to which these networks help build capacity of producers, both building production expertise and marketing expertise in providing a forum not only for farmers to sell their products, but to develop peer-to-peer relationships with other producers in those markets or those CSAs or whatever outlets that the project was really focused on. In terms of outreach activities that FMPP supported, this is just a glimpse, and again, this is not every FMPP award that existed, but just among the respondents that responded to our survey, which is about 50% of all of those awards in that time frame. So among that group of respondents, there were quite a few activities that took place outside of market hours, so partnerships with other community entities, events, educational workshops, or other things that took place outside the context of the market operating hours. A really high degree of participation in cooking or nutrition classes that had been offered with the support of FMPP. And a lot of TV and radio ads and permanent signs. In addition to, although I didn't show it here, there are quite a few billboards that many seem to find to be a successful marketing avenue. And since more than half of respondents said that their market increased the number of weeks open for business, and more than a third increased the number of days open for business, it's no surprise that grantees reported significant increase in overall customer visitor counts, and 94% reported an increase in the number of first-time customers, so customers that had not been there before but may have been responding to new promotional or marketing efforts. So a number of grantees focused on EBT activities, the vast majority of which reported an increase in the return rate of SNAP shoppers since their grant began. And 84% reported an actual increase in sales or redemptions. SNAP benefits. And that's among the more than 3/4 of the grantees that responded to our survey that said that they actually did have some function in their project, specifically reaching out to low-income families. Not only SNAP participants, but also Farmers Market Nutrition Program participants. And more than half offered some kind of complementary nutrition and fresh produce preparation education to the community with FMPP support, many of which targeted low-income families, but not necessarily. They're open to the broader community. Now, in regards to professional development, one of the interesting findings was a pretty high degree of grantee use of funds for training to farmers, to staff, or to volunteers, really contributing to skill building and focusing on building the producer capacity to grow and market new crops, to extend seasons. There was a number of notations in comment areas about season extension education for producers to help them extend the seasons and grow new crop varieties. And also there was an increase with a correlation between allocating funding to training market managers and reported producer sales. And that's an interesting finding that we haven't yet really dug into to find out what may be a result of that, but that definitely bears a little more examination. We also found that FMPP builds capacity for the grantee organization. For 42%, FMPP was the first government grant they had received, and for many of them, the only government grant that they had ever received. And they cited it as a catalyst that allowed them not only to seek other funding, but to develop other programs, to forge partnerships within the community, and develop other sustainable funding revenues. Most significantly, they were able to leverage additional funding from private grants, city or state grants, business sponsorships, other funds, in addition to some degree of other federal funding. But predominantly other funding sources that they reported they were able to leverage with FMPP support were private support. And sponsorships were also noted as a promising avenue for market sustainability to continue activities. And I think one of the reasons that grantees seem to cite the success of FMPP as a catalyst was that many of them developed partnerships with other community organizations, and they felt that maximized the existing resources so that they could continue activities after the grant had ended. And partnerships and relationships seem to be very key, a key theme that emerged frequently in the comments section of the survey, which we received. We received many, many comments and some really inspiring stories. I'll share a few quotes with you towards the end here. So more than 3/4 of grantees said that their FMPP project specifically increased volunteer participation in their organization, and really engaging the community and helping increase credibility and buy-in of their activities in the community and the role that they played there, whether they were a farmers market organization or a regional or state network or an urban farm or any other kind of direct marketing innovator. So as a result of FMPP, grantees cited stronger relationships. And interestingly, they cited the relationships with farmers as having improved the most as a result of their grant, which we found interesting. Seconded by community and nonprofits, as is suggested by the degree to which they develop new relationships with other organizations in the community. Additionally, FMPP was used to build networks, and I think this is important. There are a number of grants that dealt with community-level projects, the vast majority operated at community level, but there were a number of grants that helped develop or support activities of state farmers market associations or state networks of producers, direct marketing organizations, and indeed in the last 5 years we've seen a real bloom in the number of state farmers market associations that are designed to help build networks and support combined marketing campaigns and really expand the voice and the role of farmers markets at a state level and bring market managers together to learn best practices and take advantage of cost savings, maybe in insurance and other market operating costs. In terms of the grantee process, we asked some questions related to that. By and large, grantees were satisfied with a lot of the elements of the program and expressed overwhelmingly their gratitude for this program. And as I stated earlier, citing it as a catalyst, that catalyst word was used very frequently in the comment section. And they felt the most positive with their ability to interact with FMPP staff. A couple of areas where they were relatively less satisfied or felt that there could be improvements were with the mandatory orientation and training, which I know has evolved over time since FMPP's beginnings in 2006 and become taken the form of webinars or face-to-face convenings for training. And some people felt that process could be made a little bit more efficient, and others said that they wish they could find more information on other FMPP grants. But again, by and large, respondents were very satisfied with the grant process. So as I noted, we received thousands of comments throughout the survey. One of the things I thought was neat, and this is just one little quick glimpse into FMPP, is one of the proudest accomplishments was establishing a homework help tent for students. And as simple as an activity original proposal, just a simple illustration of an idea that was put in place and supported with some additional staffing capacity that was supported by FMPP that really helped bridge the urban-rural divide, children in where the market was located, and children from farms coming together on a Saturday or Sunday morning and doing homework together and having some adults there or teachers there that could help them with certain programs. And it's not something you typically associate with a farmer's market, but what an interesting idea. Some of the other proudest accomplishments were adding a revenue stream of $70,000 in EBT sales to the market in the first year that they offered SNAP EBT at a particular market, and helping sustain markets in rural areas that may not have otherwise been created or emerged without that initial infusion of support that they would then be able to become sustainable. Now I'd like to begin to turn it over to our two guests, Glenn Hill and Elizabeth Forst, who are going to, starting with Glenn, going to go over their case studies that have been selected and featured on our FMPP microsite to talk a little bit about their projects that had very different focuses and kind of illustrate some of the things we weren't necessarily able to capture in some of the questions that were asked in the survey without overwhelming people with a billion questions. It was a long enough survey as it was. So with that, I will turn it over to Glenn, and who can get started, and then Elizabeth will go, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A.
Great. Yeah, this is Glenn Hill. I'm the Executive Director at Minnesota Food Association. Welcome, everyone. Very happy to have the opportunity to share our experience with you today. MFA operates Big River Farms. It's an on-site training and incubator program located in Minnesota. We've worked with about 100 farms since we've started this incubator in 2005. And our goal is to equip new and historically underserved farmers to be able to operate sustainable and organic vegetable farm enterprises. Our farmers come from a variety of places, primarily East Africa and Central America and Southeast Asia, Laos and Burma and Cambodia. What prompted us to do this was marketing really is the top request coming from farmers. Of course, production is their main interest, but once they begin production, they want markets. We tend not to work with or focus on farmers markets, but we focus on operating CSAs and how to reach other wholesale markets, restaurants, institutions, stores, co-ops, etc. Our aim is that the farmers understand the pros and they can adapt this to their preferences in their production and begin to build what we call a market portfolio. We want farmers to have at least 2 different market outlets. Many of the farmers in our program sell at farmers markets, but they usually arrange this themselves. And so we tend to focus on the other markets. And our project with FMPP was to teach and work with farmers on setting up their own CSA. I think we should go to a next slide.
Sorry, minor technical difficulty while I have to log back in.
Okay.
I apologize, folks. Just take a second.
All right. So our overarching goal is to assist the farmers in developing their own set of markets. MFA operates a 160-member CSA ourselves. We arrange it and set it up. And we also have 5 to 8 different types of wholesale markets. And the farmers in our program produce for these markets. Our Big River Farms, our own farm, and our site also produces for these markets, but we work with the farmers to set up plans in January and February and March, and we aggregate the produce, and a lot of the produce goes into the CSA. We have a price list, and we buy the produce from the farmers and aggregate it for the CSA. Initially, we thought we were going to begin to identify an EBT system for a CSA, and this was cut from our proposal, and probably a good thing because we might have been taking on more than we could do. So our objective was to train 10 farm businesses and have 5 new farms set up their own CSA. And in doing this, to develop new partnerships in the community and to facilitate farmer-to-farmer relationships, farmers who are operating CSAs to learn from farmers who would like to operate a CSA. The results. The 10 farms in our program comprise about 29 people. They all have 2 markets. They are all producing at least $5,000 in gross sales from an acre. Actually, one farmer produced up to $15,000, so that's really the high end. But 6 farms did set up their own independent CSA. Next. I want to move along. So what did we learn? What we learned is that CSA was very attractive to farmers because you get your money up front, and that helps to offset your early season costs. But farmers underestimate the level of planning and skill needed for a CSA. They underestimate the communication needed for a CSA. They underestimate the record keeping. And then the post-harvest handling, the distribution, is all quite involved in a CSA. And then most of the farmers really underestimated the number of members and the number of weeks that they could handle. Everybody wanted 50 members, 60 members, and wanted to do 18 weeks or 20 weeks. And that was really biting off more than they could handle. So we experimented and talked with farmers and modified the size of the CSA, limit the members to 10 or 15 and focus on the quality. Limit the length of your season. You don't have to do 18 weeks. You can do 9 weeks or 10 weeks. One farmer divided it up into 2 batches. He did an early season for 5 weeks and then took a break mid-June to early July, and then started a late summer for another 4 or 5 weeks. And then another one does a 1 or 2 weeks in the fall with squashes. They underestimate the need for computer literacy. Once you get above 10 or 15 members, you really need some computer literacy. You can't keep track of all that with handwritten spreadsheets. Another was arranging drop sites. It was easy to take on new drop sites, but it takes time and effort to maintain the communications with the drop site and the transportation and delivery. So we encouraged farmers to limit it to 2 drop sites. One farmer did the farm and their house. That's it. Those are our drop sites. And that really made their life much easier. And we believe that CSAs do have a role in developing the farmers' market portfolio that they want to have, but it's not for everyone. And yeah, I think I'd like to go to the next slide. And I'm just going to really wrap this up. We have interconnected goals. That's what I said. The CSA is part of a larger picture. Really is important to, we used to share the marketing duties among all our staff, 4 people. But it really helps to have a designated person. Midstream evaluation means that we do regular check-ins with staff and farmers. And that's really important. There's a picture of Rodrigo. I'll do one story. Rodrigo's a very good example. He started a CSA. He worked it for 2 years. He had about 15 members. And eventually he stopped because he decided it was too much work. It was too difficult to maintain the communications, to maintain so many different crops. And now the way he likes to farm is dealing directly with large distributors and doing 4 crops: broccoli, tomatoes, green peppers, and garlic. And he's happy that way. But doing the CSA for those 2 years helped him figure out what he wants to do and what he wants to be in the future. So learning about a CSA and learning about the operations is a great experience for farmers to help them understand the pros and cons of both a CSA, but also the pros and cons of other markets, and figuring out which markets do I like to produce for, which markets am I good at producing for, and then to develop a good business model that suits you and your style of farming and the way you like to market. I would like to end right there. I'm also very happy to say that I really appreciate the support of FMPP, and I think FMPP program is super great and has reached thousands of farmers and thousands of consumers, and it's a great program. Thank you. Am I still there?
Yes, you are. Great. Well, we'll go ahead and let Elizabeth get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Forrest. I'm the South Pennsylvania Market Manager in Central Virginia, and I want to echo Glenn's remarks about how much we appreciate the FMPP and also Farmers Market Coalition for pulling this together. It's been a really transformative program in our region, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We started our incentive program as a Wholesome Wave partner in 2009 with a single market and served I served as an FMPP reviewer in 2010, and I really strongly recommend that those of you who are interested in FMPP applications maybe take that step as a great way to learn about what the grant looks for and how to structure an effective grant. You can probably move to the next slide, Stacy. Thanks. We applied for FMPP in 2011 to create a regional market partner network. Our goal was to increase local food access and affordability at 3 markets in the Fredericksburg region in Central Virginia. With FMPP, we were able to work collaboratively on outreach, on payment processes, and on reporting. Probably one of the biggest factors in some of the success has been a wide range of partnerships that we've used for outreach. We work collaboratively with a number of community groups to reach our end users, which are in SNAP recipients. We work now with 65 producers through the Market Token Program, and we're really generating significant revenue for the small and mid-sized farms in our region. Working with FMPP, we have been able to really increase our staff capacity, develop new materials, and provide a lot of support for growing our local food system. But back to partnerships for a minute, sorry. We've worked extensively with local organizations such as Extension, the local libraries, faith-based organizations, hospitals, schools, and food pantries, and they have been really integral to the outreach for this program. Next slide, please. Stacy asked me to tell you a little bit more about our region. We have 4 markets that are spread around a area that's about the size of Rhode Island. A rural market, a historic downtown market, sort of a suburban parking lot market, and now our newest one that we started last year at a hospital parking lot. I guess really one of the big things is the unexpected outcomes. In doing FMPP, you start doing one thing and it really leads to a series of new things through partnerships and through a lot of interest in local foods in this region. We now are operating 6 markets. We've added 2 new ones this year. So a lot of unexpected growth, again, very much supported by FMPP in allowing us to explore these new opportunities and kind of take on things that we might not have been able to do in the past. One of the 2 markets that we started this year, one is in a food desert area and a second is on a military base. So really interesting new opportunities for our growers. So the 65 growers that we work with at those markets, we've expanded those numbers, but we've also provided a lot of new marketing opportunities for them both through direct markets and through some new wholesale arrangements. We have a project with a local food pantry where we're selling direct from a single farm to their food pantry, and that has been very, very successful as a way to get seconds sold that otherwise would have been donated or tilled under. One of the keys to, I think, to most local food development is capacity. Again, lots of new opportunities come up. How do you deal with these new opportunities? Getting a federal grant really provided us with some significant credibility and the ability to leverage other funding. We were a real startup organization, and getting sort of getting that FMPP as well as a specialty crop block grant helped sort of put us on the map and allowed us to generate interest in these programs. Again, the programs have been very successful. We've increased our SNAP sales over 60% with the support of these grant dollars. But most importantly, we've had the people to do the work, allowing us to take advantage of some of these new opportunities. One of the key learnings for me over the past 2 years has been, you feel like you get this federal grant and, okay, everything's good and you're all set, but the reality is you have to come up with a mixed portfolio of funding strategies, some private funding, some public funding, state and local funding, as well as earned income. So this season we're really working on those earned income opportunities. Our grants are coming to an end, so we have to find new ways to cover the cost to do the low-income access and affordability work. Next slide, please. So one of the big requirements, of course, with FMPP and with any federal grant is reporting and evaluation. And we've been very fortunate to have some really good tools. We work with our local university. We've had help from Wholesome Ways in reporting. But it's really a fairly significant effort for any grantee. And I think it's really important to kind of go into it knowing that you have to have really good baseline data, and then you've got to have ways to show how you've made change in your food system. And I think it would be very beneficial if there were some additional solutions out there for market managers. Market managers, the work tends to fall on us, and maybe we don't have economics degrees or research degrees. So if there were some additional tools that could provide a more consistent evaluation across grantees, that would be very useful. Some of those standardized tools that we could just pull upon instead of having to create our own. But overall, evaluation has sort of helped keep us on track. We really pay attention to how we're doing, how the growth is moving. Putting those reporting structures in place has been very, very key. Obviously, as well as having the other tools at our disposal that we're working with as a market network. The common reporting, I've already mentioned, but common outreach and our payment processes for producers, all of that. The impact of these programs is really, it's hard to sort of capture it all because there's been so much growth in interest in local food, so many new producers coming forward who want to be part of our markets and who are looking for new markets. So it's all kind of, there's this big interconnected thing of things moving ahead, but the core of that came from initial support from FMPP and other grants, and so it's really, I think it's incredibly important that there are ways that food system groups who are interested in doing this work can tap into some seed funding that will enable them to move forward. We see now even our very smallest producers participating in the market token program. We see a lot of growth in the viability of those small producers. When I first started this, people would drop out pretty regularly. We don't have so many market dropouts now because they're able to kind of keep the income flowing throughout the season. And 131,000 in market token sales last season was really a significant impact on these small and mid-sized producers. So we feel pretty confident that we can keep this going. Sustainability is always an issue, but with some of these earned income strategies, I think we've got optimism for the future. I sincerely hope that FMPP will continue to be available to market organizations like ours. A lot of regions like ours don't have a food system council or an environmental council who's doing this work. So it really does fall on small market organizations to move the ball forward. So,
thank you, Elizabeth. That was great. Glenn, I know you cut your presentation short just a little bit. If you're interested, if you want to talk about one of your producers that you had hoped to talk about, I can go back to your slide. And then we can to questions.
Okay, super. One of our star farmers, Mei Lee, she's a Hmong American woman. She was farming for many, many years on her own and selling at farmers markets, and she felt like she was spinning her wheels, and she joined our program in 2006. In 2008, she decided she wanted to start her own CSA. She was selling some wholesale. She continues to sell at a couple of very upscale or heavy, put it that way, heavy traffic, popular farmers markets. And a couple of things that came out from that were, initially she started at 60 members, and her target was 60 members. She got 50 members, and it completely burned her out. She was completely stressed out. And I also remember, I think she wasn't fully prepared for what it takes to run a CSA, because the first week went well, and the second week someone complained that some piece of the produce wasn't good. And she said it was like someone stuck a stake through my heart. And we tried to explain to her that there's going to be someone complain. I mean, you just can't avoid it. So don't take it personally. And she just couldn't get over that. But over the years, what she has modified and adapted this, and now she has one drop site that is an office building with 30 people, and they are quite dedicated. I guess this year is about 26 people, and it fits into her model very well. It took her a few years to work this out, but it works very well for her because she has one drop site, and she can, if she wants to meet with her CSA members, she has one place to go, and the income in the beginning of the season really helps her. She doesn't have to take out any loans to cash flow her operation. And another critical factor is that she has a wonderful daughter who is a very high energy, high capacity woman who handles the communications and handles they even have a website, Mompa's Garden. And so that has made it workable for her. I guess my point is that they started out a little bit too ambitious. They were quick to make adjustments, and now they've settled into a situation where CSA is really part of their overall marketing portfolio. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think what I hear in both of your stories is that there's really no cookie-cutter approach to direct marketing success in a given community, and that one of the unique features of FMPP that had emerged through this research process is that as a grant program, it's unique in being accessible for grassroots organizations that have good ideas. And that's not necessarily the case with some other USDA programs that may not seem as accessible to smaller organizations. And also the other observation I made in listening to you is that the activities seem to be as diverse as the outcomes themselves. And, you know, we may be seeing outcomes emerging a decade from now that may have been a result of some initial project that was piloted through FMPP. You know, we saw many different success stories in the course of this research, and I wish we could highlight all of them, but hopefully those of you who can get online and go to the website, and there's 2 other case studies that are online, found notable as PDFs.
Stacy, I have one other comment kind of related to that is the investment in staff and quality staff and staff capacity has been critical. I mean, we're looking at a photo here of one of our staff who is helping other farmers grade their produce, and FMPP allowed us to allow the staff to really have these one-on-one mentoring interactions that allowed a person like Mei Li to think through and make the adaptations to make it work. And yes, it was a lot of investment of time and money and staff effort, but you know, we have now, Mei Li is the first Hmong American certified organic farmer in Minnesota. She's the first Hmong American CSA, and they have a stable operation. They're going to be farming for years and years, and thousands of people are getting their wonderful produce. So the investment is worth it.
Great. Thanks for making that additional note. Elizabeth, do you have any closing thoughts before we open it up to questions?
I guess I'll just echo what Glenn said, that it's critically important to have this source of investment in small organizations. Not all grants will pay for staff capacity, and that's really what is needed to pursue these many diverse and interesting opportunities on the ground.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to share your stories with us. And with that, we'll open it up to some questions. It looks like we had one already from Trudy Tolliver in Portland. Hi, Trudy. You ask about what the current status of FMPP is for this year and next. And of course, as many of you noticed, there was no call for proposals for the Farmers Market Promotion Program this spring, or spring-summer, as there typically is. And that's because the USDA and the whole federal government was operating on a continuing resolution, which did not include funding for the Farmers Market Promotion Program, unfortunately. And so there was no 2013 program. Now, whether there will be a 2014 program, we don't know at this point, and that is dependent on a farm bill passing. Whether FMPP will exist in 2014 is dependent on the passage of a farm bill that would restore funding for it. And as many of you may have heard, the Senate passed its version of a 5-year farm bill earlier this summer. The House passed a version which is significantly less in funding. Both included support for the Farmers Market Promotion Program. However, because the House's version was controversial in splitting out all of the nutrition title, so its farm bill did not include any of the nutrition programs and cut funding for SNAP because that's so controversial. The process of the Senate and the House coming together to come to an agreement on a farm bill is probably going to be slower than it may otherwise be. So there is the possibility that before the end of the fiscal year, there could be another continuing resolution passed to sort of get the government or get USDA funded in some limited fashion for at least a few months. And if that happens, there's probably, or the fate of FMPP for 2014 would still be up in the air. And there are advocates that are trying to push for a full passage of the Farm Bill as sooner than later so that a program like FMPP can be restored to funding. So right now we're in a bit of a holding pattern. But that's a great question. There is actually a very good summary of this that FMC's Director Jen O'Brien put in the most recent FMC newsletter. So if you want to read that on the Farmers Market Coalition website, it does give a little summary and a comparison of the two versions of FMPP that have been proposed in the House and the Senate version of a farm bill, if and when it passes. Any other questions, either about more information about the survey itself or any of the findings, or about the case studies? Well, with that, we're right exactly at 1 hour, so we can wrap up. And anyone who has any questions about this research, feel free to email me directly at stacy@farmersmarketcoalition.org. And definitely check out that microsite. And feel free to give us feedback or ask any questions. Or I hope you'll circulate some of the case studies and some of the report findings in your community. There's a little mini version of this presentation that's embedded onto that site, so you can pop that up into your browser, and I think it's easy to share that or put it on your social media if you're interested in sharing it with the rest of your community. Thank you so much to all of you for participating. Have a great day, and happy belated Farmers Market Week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.